The story of Tel Aviv is the story of a municipal Jack and the Beanstalk. It was planted less than 50 years ago, meant to be a quiet little garden suburb. The streets of one section were laid out in the shape of a candelabra, another in the shape of a six-pointed Star of David. Today, these sections are right in the heart of a bustling metropolis of 500,000. If you wanted to design a perfect mousetrap for a traffic cop, you couldn't do better than Tel Aviv. The phenomenal growth of the city is a source of pride to the citizen and a problem for the policeman. Every morning he checks in at his precinct station and finds the experts busy drafting new traffic regulations, setting up new stop signs and red lights for the roads that keep sprouting overnight. The city council has been known to approve the names of 20 new avenues at a single sitting. The city motto is taken from the Old Testament: "I shall build thee and thou shalt be built." And that includes no parking zones and one-way streets. The precinct desk keeps in constant touch with officers along the main thoroughfares, checking in reports on the flow of traffic. As often as not, a traffic cop's day starts by being sent out on the assignment of clearing up a jam at one of the city's main squares. His beat for today is along Allenby Road, right along the crowded commercial center of the city, Tel Aviv's counterpart of Times Square and Piccadilly Circus. It takes a healthy imagination to believe that just 50 years ago, this was a sleepy little village with the law barring shops and factories, with chains stretched across the streets on Sabbath to keep out wagons, not to mention donkeys and camels. Well, some mornings can still be pleasant and quiet. Other mornings it can seem as though everybody in Israel has come pouring into Tel Aviv. For a policeman who knows his business, it doesn't take long to discover what's causing the jam-up. This is just one of those mornings, that's all, when it seems as though everybody in Israel is passing through Tel Aviv. The first hour out on the beat, you can tell it's going to be a rough day. An old hand gets philosophical about it. Traffic jams are like bananas. They come in bunches. Clearing up a traffic jam is a picnic compared to some of the jobs that come up in the line of duty. There are some situations that are international. The language here is Hebrew, but the translation is just about the same in Paris or Chicago. Where do you think you're going, to a fire? But in Tel Aviv, the first offender gets off with a warning noted on the back of the driver's license. A man does his best to be polite about it. But you might as well face it. In the whole wide world, there never was a traffic cop who could win a popularity contest. And so it goes. A day in the life of a policeman in this city on wheels.
I'm Colonel Basil Herman of the Israeli Army. Official title, military governor of the Negev. That's the wilderness that stretches over the southern half of Israel. But the Negev wasn't always a desert. At places like Kurnub and Abda, you can see ruins of ancient cities, complete with cisterns and public baths. Here in the Arava were the copper mines of King Solomon. And here at Eilat, King Solomon's navies set sail for the Orient and Africa. What flourished once can be made to flourish again, and already we can see it happening. Pioneer settlements dotting the ridges, trees, barley fields, and the minerals of the Negev are being exploited. Potash from the Dead Sea, phosphates from the Great Crater, and even King Solomon's mines are once more producing copper. The seaport of Eilat is also operating. When you open a frontier, the road is the lifeline. We had one. A road to Eilat. Running here along the border, a winding, twisting, uncertain road, wide open to ambush and sniping fire. It wasn't the sort of thing you'd hang your future on. So we decided to build another. 130 miles down the center of a wilderness. Here and there, an ancient camel track. Here, a ravine with a sheer drop of 200 to 300 feet. And here, nothing. The Army Engineers and the Ministry of Labor set out to bring alive the prophecy of Isaiah. And the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose, and a highway shall be there. These are the men who built it: road gangs, surveyors, engineers.
The road begins with the engineers, working out of temporary headquarters in the field, mapping a route through the wilderness, deciding where to curve and where to blast straight through, deciding just what it will take to do the job, how many steam shovels and how much dynamite, how many trucks and how many men. The first crews come bouncing in across the desert, across this dusty wasteland that was once one of the world's great trade routes. Through these stone slopes in the time of the Byzantines came caravans bringing spices from India, carpets from Persia, and precious silks from Peking. The ancient tracks are covered over now by the dust of centuries, and all that remains is the challenge. The teams of surveyors set to work, stringing out the lines, marking the way for the bulldozers and the jackhammer men. Chopping through the chalk cliffs, scooping away the soft sandstone, pounding down the natural kaolin that makes a perfect base for a modern highway. They split into two teams, one working down from Kfar Yerucham, the other driving north from Eilat. Come up against a barrier like the towering wall of the Machtesh Ramon, and there's only one way to get through. Month after month, working a 14-hour day in heat blazing at 110 degrees. Past dim camel tracks and the ruins of cities that date back to the days of Caesar. Leveling the way for the asphalt crews. The hot tar laid down by men who know how to handle themselves in this desert heat. Immigrants from North Africa and the hills of Kurdistan. Day after day, pushing it through. The new road curving from Tel Yerucham to Sde Boker, from Sde Boker to Abda. 2 weeks in the desert, and then the 2-day break. A chance to head down to Eilat, the rugged little frontier town on the Gulf of Aqaba, at the northern shore of the Red Sea. A chance to spend a few days where there's always a spot of shade and a bit of cool wind, where water doesn't have to be rationed out by the thimbleful. A chance to take it easy and wash the desert out of your throat. Swap the latest gossip with the border guards, the young fishermen, the copper miners, and tourists and frontier farmers who make up most of Eilat's population. A few brief hours of fun in the recreation club, overlooking the shore where once King Solomon's navy put to sea to bring back gold and peacocks from the Orient. Loaf a little, laugh a little, shoot the breeze, and then it's time to head back to work again. There's 130 kilometers of highway to put through, and it won't build itself. Every inch on the map, every mile of road is paid for with sweat and back-breaking labor. The 20th century circles through the ancient hills, between the mountains of Moab and the plains of Sinai. The work goes on in a steady routine, the crews taking off from Eilat again and into the desert, month after month for a solid year. And each crew is a miniature Israel. Soldier and civilian, Jew and Arab, old-timer and new immigrant, working together to open a way through the wasteland. Day by day, the desert becomes a dirt road. The dirt road becomes a blacktop highway. A new road for pioneers coming in to plant their settlements on the hilltops. A new route for trucks roaring along to bring out phosphates from the valley of Arava. A new lifeline for construction crews heading in to build the southern seaport on the Gulf of Aqaba. Where the road builders blaze the trail, the promise of the future goes riding down the road to Eilat.